What's up, everyone? This is Tony with your weekend trout shout. These are my 1, 2, 3 trout boys. Let's dance.
Today to get better, there's only one way. Trout shout.
Alright, stop dancing. That's too much dancing. I'm here to tell you we had some technical difficulties this week, which is why my voice sounds so weird. So I wanted to let you know about an event coming up on March 10th. It's going to be an event for middle school and high school students. It's from 5 to 6 p.m. with dinner at 6. We're going to play some games together. Go long! We're also going to have some other games, maybe like ping pong. Watch as I school my kid in ping pong. Are you ready for it? It's going to come nice and slow. Ha! Oh, I am so good at ping pong. So invite your friends, we're going to have games, we're going to have worship, we're going to have a good teaching, and then we'll also eat food together. Service starts at 5 o'clock and goes until 6 o'clock, and we'll eat dinner at 6 o'clock. So make sure to invite your friends. If you need to stay up to date and want more information about that, follow us on social media at AIMTucson, and also text at AIMTucson to 81010 to stay updated. I'm Tony, and I'm a trout.
So I've been going to Prescott Pines with the Alive Church youth group for the past about 3 or 4 years now. And I never really considered service an option until about 3 years ago. The pastor at church camp was talking about how God has one thing that he's always wanted you to do, and that you should stop saying no and you just give in and say yes. And so during that time I thought, God's always been telling me, you should get more involved with your church. You should sing because it's something you've been doing for the past, your entire life. Why not give that part of your life to God? And it was in that moment that I decided, I'd stop saying no, and I would just give in and say yes. During this time that I was involved with the church camp and I was beginning to do worship, I was really, really concerned about how much time it was going to take away from me. I have been at Basis for the past 8 years of my life, and it's a college prep school, so it's got 4 to 5 hours of homework each night, relatively, and it's very intensive, and if you're not focused, you'll easily fall behind, and you'll probably end up having to leave the school. And I didn't want to leave, and I really wanted to stay focused on my work, and I was so concerned that being involved with the worship team was going to take away a lot of that time, and I wouldn't have time to focus on what I needed to do and do well in school for college. But I really found that instead of detracting from my high school experience and my education and my grades, it helped me improve because it gave me an outlet and it gave me something else to focus on other than just my work and what I was so passionate about. It gave me time to just enjoy life and worship God instead of stressing about what I needed to do for the next day. And it's something that's really compelled me to get into a deeper relationship with God. It led me to be closer to Him through the song lyrics and just having some time to myself. And Nate and other people will talk about how it's not necessarily, taking away from your free time. It should be from your heart. And that's something that I really believe in because for me, it's not taking away from my free time. It's just like having time to myself, but in a different area with God instead of yourself.
Here's the start. All right, so I am here today at the edge of the table, this beautiful shot, with V'Eanna. And V'Eanna works here at the church. She also is a small group leader and has been being with the youth ministry for 4 or 5 years. Done a lot and done pretty much everything, but your role here at the church is very unique and very pivotal to what we do every single weekend. So why don't you describe her? Her title is volunteer coordinator, right?
Yeah, so I do volunteer and events, so volunteer and events coordinator. So if you are thinking about volunteering, if anyone in the church is thinking about volunteering, they come to me first, and I take them through the process of learning about their spiritual gifts, like we talked about last week. I take them through the process of shadowing and seeing if they like it, trying out different things, and getting them onto a team, and ultimately, changing the way that they see serving and changing the way that they're growing in a new light. So my purpose is to try and take what you love and what your core being is, and find a place for you here, because there is a place. And if there's not a place, let's make a place.
Yeah. And we just watched a video about Leah stepping into service on the worship team. And what's really cool about that is that you were a part of the camp that she was at. We all were, and you were there, and you saw her make that choice and that decision. And what I think is really cool about Leah's story is that she knew, like, oh, I'm decent at singing. And then she decided, well, what if I gave that to God?
She just liked to sing.
Yeah, she just liked to sing.
Like when she was, during her free time, she just liked to sing.
Yeah. And then moving it from, this is something that I like to do and I enjoy, to now I'm impacting other people, and now I'm helping other people worship God in a way that I do personally. And that's really cool. And I think for some people we see like, oh, well, Leah's a good singer, and obviously that works. But like you said, like, well, what about eating? What about like just talking to people? Because sometimes we feel like we don't bring enough to the table to give our gifts or to serve in a way that is unique or will actually make a difference. So there's this verse in the Bible, or this story in the Bible, it's this thing that happens where Jesus is on the side of a mountain preaching to thousands of people. And all of a sudden I guess not all of a sudden, it's coming to the end of the day. And the disciples come up to Jesus and say, like, hey, people are getting hungry. People need to go and eat. Like, what are we going to do? We don't have anything to feed all these people. And so do you want to pick up in the verse where the disciples are talking to Jesus?
Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked, where can we buy bread to feed all of these people? He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them. Then Andrew, Simon's brother, spoke up. There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. What good is that with this huge crowd? Tell everyone to sit down, Jesus said. So they sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people.
There's one person that I think gets overlooked, because you have like Jesus feeding 5,000. It's a miraculous miracle.
And disciples talking, and 5,000 men in the crowd.
Yeah, so he's this kid who's like, he brought his Lunchable with him that day. And he's got like the mini pizzas, and he's got like the cheese, and he's like
the Crunch Bar.
Yeah, he's got the Crunch Bar, the Capri Sun.
Oh, don't forget that.
Maybe it's a little healthier one because it's 2019. Well,
the Honest Kids juice.
Yeah, it's probably Honest Kids. But he's got his little Lunchable, and he's got his lunch with him, and it's 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. And then Jesus does something miraculous with it. But like that kid walked in with saying like, this is all I have. And he looks at this crowd, and they're like, the disciples are going around and asking people like, hey, does anyone have any food? And this kid's like,
I got some bread and some fish.
Bread and some fish. Like, what am I going to do with that? Like, this is, I was going to eat this myself. And yet, when he's like, I don't know what you're going to do with this, Jesus. I don't know how it's going to be used, but here, this is what I have.
Yeah, he's trusting in him.
Yeah.
Kind of how Leah's story was, in that she gave up her, her feelings of, I don't have time to do this, and she gave it up to God, and God did miraculous things with her gift.
Yeah, and it's like that, she only had this limited amount of time, and she's looking at all the things, like that kid's probably looking at like, well, I'm supposed to eat. How am I going to eat? And well, we may only feed a couple people, but if I give this to Jesus, if I give this to God, if I trust that he's going to do things with this, wow, I could make a difference. And like, we don't ever hear from that kid again in the Bible.
My kid's pretty legit, though.
Yeah, and like, can you imagine, he's going to go, and the trust that he's going to have in God, and the relationship that he's going to have with him.
The testimony that he's going to have.
The story he gets to tell of how his gifts were used. And like, I have stories of how my gifts have been used, and you have stories, and Leah has stories, and so we get to share those things with people when we ultimately trust in God that he's going to do with it more than we could even imagine.